Suspension forks are expensive and they can be intimidating to work on, so we'd all like to forget about them until they stop working, but here's the problem with that. Once the grit wears down the stanchions on the upper and the bushings on the lower, it's game over for your fork's chassis. There's no getting around the fact that mountain biking's dirty. Even in supposedly ideal weather conditions like we have here in San Luis Obispo, there's dust everywhere you go that sticks to suspension components and acts like sandpaper between every moving part. Multiply that wear by 10 times if you routinely ride in wet conditions. After these critical interfacing dimensions have been altered, even new dust wiper seals won't properly seal, and you'll have to deal with bushing slop issues. You can see the horror for yourself with a quick Google image search for MTB fork stanchion wear. Almost all of this visually detectable wear is hidden inside the assembled fork, making the problem especially insidious. If you haven't experienced this yourself, take it from me. Rattly, sloppy forks with brake chatter are miserable out on the trail and can really take the fun out of a ride. If this happens to you, the only way to fix it is to replace the whole fork chassis. That means both the uppers and lowers need to be replaced. The only salvageable parts on the fork will be the internal spring and damper assemblies, and they'll be worn anyway. Once the labor required to pull these parts out of the old chassis and install them with fresh O-rings into a new chassis are considered, you might as well just spend a few $100s more and get a new fork. The good news is, though, you shouldn't have to do this, because with some preventative maintenance, you can keep your fork working great for a long time. First, follow the manufacturer's instructions to wipe off your stanchions and seals after every ride. It takes seconds to do and will extend the life of these components more than anything else. Just remember to always use a clean rag or paper towel to do this job. Otherwise, you're just wearing down the stanchion with the accumulated grit embedded in the rag. Also, wipe everything radially, not longitudinally. Radial scratches rarely lead to oil leaks, but longitudinal scratches always do. Second, do the preventative maintenance work recommended by the manufacturer in the owner's manual. This means replacing your dust wipers and lubrication oil in the fork lowers. Every fork has a slightly different maintenance procedure, but they're all very similar. So what I'm going to do here is show you what the service generally entails, regardless of the manufacturer, if you want to tackle the work yourself. Start by removing any adjuster knobs on the bottom of the fork legs. Loosen the two fasteners on the bottom of the fork legs until there's about 3 millimeters of space between the base of the washer and where it seats onto the lower. Use a plastic or dead blow hammer against your tool to press the damper and spring tubes out of the holes in the lowers. Fully unscrew the bolts or nuts, then pull the lowers off and drain the lubrication oil. Use a pick or L-shaped hex wrench to pull out the foam rings and a tire lever to pry out the old dust wipers. Clean the dirty oil out of the lowers with lint-free shop towels. Saturate the new foam rings with oil and install them, followed by the dust wipers. Just be sure to pull the springs off the wipers first. Ideally, dust wipers are installed with a guide bushing and a hammer. However, dust wipers can often be pressed in by hand. If not, an appropriately sized socket or a homemade tool made from PVC pipe can work too. Slide the wiper springs onto the stanchion up to the top and then slide the lowers on. Prepare a syringe with a slip tip or a short hose attached to put in the type and amount of lower lubrication oil recommended by the manufacturer. You'll need to tip the fork past 90 degrees to inject the oil into the lowers without it running back out. Then reinstall the two lower fasteners, ideally with new crush washer seals and any damper control knobs. Reinstall the dust wiper spring and then put everything back together, and you're done. If this kind of work is out of your comfort zone as a home mechanic, take it to a trusted local bike shop or suspension service center to have them do the work for you. Most shops will let you schedule an appointment so you won't have to be without your bike for more than a day or two. We all know that's better than the alternative, spending a bunch of money on a new fork and waiting a whole week for it to get there. If you like this video, be sure to like and subscribe, and check out our other videos in the Arts Ask a Mechanic series.